Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back. We are going to continue the conversation that we were having with Fatima Hussain last time. Lots of interesting topics coming up. So, yes, let's continue and let's talk to Fatima. So, therapy works and his illness.
I think that's a tough one. I don't know if I can say much about what the mental state was or whatever.
Yes, of course.
Obviously, that's not my place. There will be whatever course the law takes, there will be assessments and forensic wo. But mentally ill people, I think that I have a huge issue with the term mental health.
Okay.
What does that even mean? What defines mental health?
Okay.
Does it mean कि आप कभी डिस्ट्रेस नहीं होते या आप बस एक ऑप्टिमम उसमें फंक्शन करते हैं?
Okay.
And I struggle with that because in my training and the way that I look at things, the mind and the body are not two separate things.
Yes, okay, makes sense.
They're very much, what you're experiencing through your body. What you're feeling through your body. And then healing largely happens through your body also when there's no vocabulary and stuff. So I think that discourse around what is mentally ill, of course there are clinical definitions, schizophrenia, active psychosis, and maybe there is a history of that there. But I think what this has done is it's made it very difficult for people who live with those labels. There's so much stigma around labels anyway. डिप्रेशन अभी तो अब जाके थोड़ा बहुत नॉर्मलाइज होना शुरू है कि डिप्रेशन एंग्जाइटी एंड आई वुड से वो सिर्फ हमारी जनरेशन में नॉट पीपल ओवर 40 perhaps कि दैट्स ओके एंड यू कैन लिव विद दोज थिंग्स बट it really gets in the way of people's lives having those labels. Personality diagnosis के अगर वो है people treat you differently and people who are now thinking, oh, somebody who is schizophrenic is capable of this. Now that means every schizophrenic person is a potential threat, and they're not. So again, I take a kind of intersectional approach on this also. Okay, mental illness doesn't occur in isolation, right? There is so much that enables stuff and people and their actions.
There's a lot of layers to this.
There's too many layers to this, and but I think it's important to say that nothing, even if it is mental illness, can justify what was done. There's no excuse for it. So that's important to say. On the therapy works issue, it's again a slightly controversial one. I think that they were part of destigmatizing therapy quite a bit.
Okay, that makes sense.
I have feelings about the way they run their courses and what they do, and I think I'm not saying everybody who comes out of therapy works is a bad therapist.
Okay.
I'm just saying that they perhaps don't have the levels of accountability in place that need to be. The checks and balances, the sort of focus on ethics, good practice, supervision. It is unfortunately a business model. It has been. And it's very incestuous in the way that it's been set up. But that said, I think a lot of people have benefited from their services. And there was this whole thing about can somebody who is sick can be a therapist, somebody who has been in therapy. And I've been very open about the fact that I'm in therapy. But I think uska bhi ek threshold hota hai. There need to be other systems in place. Supervision, peer supervision, all of these things that say, okay, now you're at a point where you can't hold your own distress, so you can't sit with somebody and help them. There are lots of therapists who are depressed and they work while they're depressed. So again, not all mental illness is the same. It's a spectrum. I don't know if this makes a lot of sense, but I am saying it's just so nuanced. But therapists being in therapy is not an anomaly, not a bad thing.
Yeah, that's the same thing. Like, they're humans too.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, I would think it's a good thing that my therapist is in therapy.
Yeah.
Because that means that they are in touch with their mental health.
Yeah.
And like, they're also like, they're not, that means that if they have wounds or if they have issues, they're sorting them out as well.
Yes.
ये नहीं कि अच्छा कभी therapy ली नहीं और आप therapy करने बैठ गए हो. I mean, अच्छी बात है मेरे ख्याल में.
I think
But
so
then
too.
again वही वाली बात है कि एक लेवल पे ना, ये नहीं कि आपका अपनी
कि आप एक्टिवली फुल ब्लोन साइकोसिस में हैं और आप बैठ के
हाँ
क्लाइंट्स
हाँ ज़ाहिर है वो नहीं
वो
हो
नहीं
सकता.
हाँ
हाँ हाँ.
so that's I think that what they really need to work on is accountability, and honestly accountability का यहाँ पे है ही नहीं कितना concept. Supervision is something the clinical psychologists don't do, and I don't think in the American model that's very wo either, but in the British kind of wo
Okay.
tradition, it's an ongoing thing. मैं पूरी ज़िंदगी करती रहूँगी as long as I see clients. Even when I'm not seeing clients, I'm in supervision.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's a prerequisite of my registration, the membership body that I'm registered with, which is the BACP. Okay, I need to have a certain number of hours every to stay on their membership.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Since we were on the conversation of outrage and like how people reacted, and then how people were like, oh, if you're sick, then you can't do therapy. So what I see that people have started seeing things in a very black and white way, you know, and with labels as well, and like this or this. People hold very polarized opinions, and also a lot of that has led to a cancel culture online.
Yeah.
Been there. Been cancelled. But like, you know, like they're there. So as a therapist, what do you have to say about cancel culture? Because I feel like it does not leave room for growth.
No, it doesn't. I agree with you. And
so it's too black and white.
Yeah, and I think that the term black and white thinking generally is something jo is a developmental stage. It's an act of regression, actually, right?
Okay.
Like as a society, we've regressed to that point where we can't see the nuance in things. Or dunya black and white kabhi bhi nahi hoti. It never is. But children start with a black and white way of thinking because that helps them make sense of the world. Ki acha ye good hai, ye bad hai.
Say yeah.
But when so maybe this is unnecessary, but Melanie Klein is a psychotherapist, was a psychotherapist, quite iconic. She calls that the paranoid schizoid position, जिसमें या सिर्फ bad होता है और good होता है. And then developmentally you reach a point, you know, it could be at age 4, 5, 6, whatever, 20, whatever, where you arrive at a place called the depressive position, which is where you can hold the good and the bad together.
Okay.
And I think that's something that is developmental. So if somebody can only see the bad in something, कि आपने एक गलती कर दी तो बस cancelled forever, that's just infantile, I think. And yes, you can call people out for saying things, but it doesn't need to be as aggressive as it is, and as persecutory as it is, because
it's like witch hunting, no?
It is. It's just like
witch hunting हो गया कि भाई इसने यूं कर दिया अब इसको तो जला दो वाली mentality
and to be
in a
honest, I
different
think
way.
that it says more about the people doing it than it does about the person who's made a mistake, right? And
no, but it's also funny now because most people that are cancelled are public figures or somebody who holds some sort of influence. Ek to those people are dehumanized because people feel like they are not capable of making any mistake. And when they do, like they are out to literally like
pitchforks के साथ.
हाँ, pitchforks वाली vibe है basically, यही है ना कि off with their heads हो जाता है, you know, burn them हो जाता है. So ये है. क्या मैं कह रही थी यार?
कि they have influence.
हाँ, but it's just so funny, like people are not able to see public figures as humans because a lot of the times when people are cancelling people, a lot of the time it has to do with, a lot of the times things are coming from the past as well. कि कुछ past की चीज़ निकलती है और वो कहते हैं ओ इसने past में ये किया था तो ये इस तरह है और इसको आज cancel कर दो. एक तो ये, दूसरा पब्लिक में आपने कुछ ऐसा बोल दिया शायद जो बहुत सारे लोग अपने पर्सनल लाइफ में भी बोल रहे होंगे. सो बेसिकली या पब्लिकली भी बोल रहे होंगे बट दे सो मेनी पीपल आर नॉट वॉचिंग दैम. So it's just funny because people cancel you for mistakes that they also make.
Yeah, and also
so how can people sort of not realize that?
I think that's part of the influencer culture also. What it has historically been, I have to say there's definitely a change in that more recently where people are more open about being vulnerable online. But that's also hard. But I also agree with you कि it is, you know, अगर कोई 5 साल पुरानी tweet निकाल के कोई कह रहा है उस बंदे ने ये बात की है, you're not giving them the chance to actually change as humans. मेरे वो
Yes.
opinions नहीं जो 5 साल पहले थे,
हाँ.
ना मेरे वो opinions जो मेरे पिछले साल थे.
हाँ, मतलब हमारी हिस्ट्री में से कोई चीज़ें निकाल दे जो हमने बोली और आज हम
हाँ.
उस पर कैंसिल कर दे, we'll be like,
It's ridiculous.
it's not fair.
It's not fair, and you're right. It doesn't give people the space to be human, which is, you know, you're constantly evolving, you're constantly learning, and you're learning from your mistakes. And I think that as an influencer, I don't know, you can tell me more about what that experience was like for you, and I'm sure it's very, very distressing. But there's a lot of pressure on perfection anyway.
Yes.
And Instagram ke bare mein, there's a lot of discourse around presenting a picture of your life that's not
So one of
true.
I feel like कि dehumanize सिर्फ लोगों ने नहीं किया, influencers ने अपने आप को किया. Because if you're going to look so perfect all the time, then you're not human for people.
Yeah.
If you're so perfect, then people will always see you like is not having flaws. If you're coming off so perfect, not having flaws, not having the ability to make mistakes. And I feel that's extremely toxic. You know, I'm part of the culture, but it is extremely toxic. I mean, I can only speak for myself though. Many personally, because I got into this a really long time ago. I've always been very
and you were positive vibes only.
Yeah, but I've always been very vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, and very genuine with what I do. Only after the incident that happened with me 2 years. Last year was when I stopped being myself. You know, like usse pehle I was always real, always myself, always vulnerable. And what actually led to this entire thing was also vulnerability. Get it? People were not ready to take as much vulnerability.
Yeah.
Right? The audience was not ready for it. And I've always been super vulnerable, I feel. Because generally in life, I don't know if you have an opinion on that. I'm a vulnerable person. Like I open up, I share.
Yeah,
things.
you always have been.
I've always been vulnerable. And I was like that online as well. But like I understand, लोगों को होता है, बहुत सारी चीज़ें authentic होती हैं, लोगों को performative लगती भी हैं, बहुत सारी चीज़ें performative होती भी हैं. So I guess वो जो dehumanizing वाला aspect है, it goes, it's because of the influencer culture anyway.
I think there
as
is.
well.
Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, but I just feel like it was just funny because of the things that people were calling me out for, or people generally. I don't want to just talk about myself. I want to talk about cancel culture in general. Were a lot of things that वही लोग कर रहे होते हैं. So you know.
I mean, there's definitely an element of hypocrisy, but अगर ना भी कर रहे हो, I think it's unrealistic to hold everybody to the same standard, right?
Yeah.
Like कि हर कोई उतना woke होगा, हर कोई उतना, you know, resolved होगा, उतनी ही introspection की होगी. That's just, I think this is a very Twitter thing. And
it's mostly on Twitter.
And the more time I spend on that app, the more I realize that it's very disconnected from actual. It's
from reality. Yeah, वो थोड़ा bubble में हैं लोग.
और bubble में हैं, और वो ठीक है, वो bubble की शायद need भी है और exist करने की ज़रूरत भी है. But I think if you get too caught up in this idea of being right and perfectly woke and I don't know how human that is.
It's not.
If you repeatedly find yourself doing the same thing again and again, you know, being called out for it, there's no introspection, there's no change, that's something else. You know, अपने 4 दफ़े एक बात की है. That's something else. Because yes, influencers do hold power, but do they really have as much responsibility as
people hold them to?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And I'm not sure it's fair to anybody, to the public or the influencers के एक बंदे की एक line on an Insta story can, you know, sure, I don't know. I have my discomfort with that. If it sits well with you, ठीक है, नहीं, तो you dismiss it. Not everybody in the world is going to have exactly the same views as you or everything in the world.
Yeah. Okay, so Fatima, I lost my father 11 years ago. And that was when we were in school together as well. O-levels की बात है. 3rd year of O-levels. And that's when I experienced the most life-changing thing. Obviously, I lost my father, and that changed. I think after that point, I've never been the same. And everything that I do to this day, somehow it, you know, it's because of that, or like कोई चीज़ है, has to do with it. And at that time I felt like I don't think like I grieved properly. I don't think I had the support or the even the I don't know the words. But I don't know. I hope you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do.
For it at the time, right? And a lot of people, and since I think you deal with loss and bereavement, right? And you saw me at that time as well.
I was there.
Yeah. So, do you have any thoughts about that or how that could have been and how it was?
Yeah. I have many thoughts. I think that I remember very distinctly, the whole thing. I don't remember the diagnosis very well, but I remember the 2 or 3 months that, he was in hospital and you were still coming to school. So it was like a level pe your life was functioning on what would have been a normal, and it wasn't a normal situation. And and I look back and I think that there were just not enough resources available for you. ना हम लोग क्या 13-14 साल के थे, 15 साल के थे.
हाँ 15
साल के थे. None of us knew what support to offer you. I think that because those conversations about loss don't happen, and it's not something that we are taught to do. के how के पहले 3 दिन जो भी आ गए आप अफसोस करने चले गए जो भी. But the process of grieving is an ongoing thing.
Yes.
And I look back and I realize that you kind of jumped back into your routine. And I think exams हमारे थे ना उस साल O levels के पहले वाले थे. So in retrospect, I don't. दूसरे थे. In retrospect, I don't remember. I don't understand how you did it actually.
Yeah, I was just back in school and like doing things.
Yeah, and I think that on some level it felt like ठीक है Humna's recovered from it. But I don't think you ever do recover from it. No. It's not something to recover from. And I wish that there had been more resources. I wish some adult had sat us class fellows down and said, look, this is what she's going through. This is what you can do to support her. Yeah. Or there was some sort of resource at school available for you that you could go talk to. Or that there was some, flexibility or sensitivity from the teachers. Yeah. But those systems aren't in place. No. And it's a real shame because, like you said, maybe you didn't have a chance to grieve in the way that you would have liked to. And maybe I can ask you this. If you could go back in time, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? I think I would definitely not go back to school so early, which I did. And I think I would be more open with my family. So one of the things I think that happened was कि हम लोग बस बहुत सब इस तरह हो गए थे. And we didn't grieve together like we should have or could have. And like when it came to school, yes, I do think that, I mean, I like ना उस वक्त ना अब मुझे इस तरह feel हुआ कि people were not there for me or didn't support me. I didn't have that expectation then. And I don't have it now कि अच्छा उनको यूँ करना चाहिए था. But obviously it could have been better. Yeah. Because I understand that nobody understood. Nobody could have understood. And I think that it was the first time for everybody in that class कि ये हुआ है हमारी ये class fellow के साथ. And it's interesting because वो हुआ था, and every time like somebody from that class goes through a loss, they always message me that we think about you and what you went through because like उस वक्त नहीं सोचा ना, उस वक्त नहीं सोचा. So now when they like think about loss or these things, then they, I don't know, somehow I come.
That was for a lot of us our first experience of watching somebody go through it.
Yes. So उनको हुआ कि यार उस वक्त हमने ये चीज़ें सोची नहीं, like हमने ये बात की नहीं. So yeah, but I understand that. And उस वक्त भी like I just didn't expect anybody to.
But maybe you didn't expect them to, but I don't think that should be a thing, right? Like, I think that there were lots of things we could have done differently. I know one of the most painful things for people is कि उनकी ज़िंदगी इतनी एक fundamental तरीके से change हुई होती है, and people just go on doing their everyday routines and going on with their lives like, and surely that brings up some kind of anger or resentment.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would say कि I didn't expect people to show any sort of extra support or empathy for me or sympathy or any of that. But I think people can just be kinder to people who have experienced loss, you know. And that is something that was not there. Yeah. Like, and I'm not saying like extra kind also. Just like not be mean. Do you know? You know, like, because I went through a lot of bullying and a lot of like distress and gossip and mean girl stuff and mean stuff. And I just feel that it could have made it much easier for me if I didn't have that to deal with as well.
And I think that children don't know how to deal with somebody who's different in any way, unfortunately, because we just don't have that kind of diversity. But people who've had different experiences. But you're right. People really should not have been as mean as they were. And kindness ki baat nahi. I think it's about just being able to hold some space and be like, this person's gone through a life-changing event.
Yeah.
But if I'm really honest with you, I think that it wasn't until I was much older that I was able to be like, shit, like that must have been huge for her. And
So you thought about it as well?
Oh, all the time. And I don't think I ever kind of grappled with the gravity of it till much later. Even though हमारे सामने हुआ था, all of it, I was at the janaza, all of those things happened. But I don't think the magnitude of it hit me till, well into my 20s.
Yeah, and I just feel like it has a lot to do with age. मतलब उस time पे आपको शायद नहीं समझ आती, and then you grow and then you're like, oh, I wish I knew better at that time. But I mean, I look back and मतलब मेरे लिए इस तरह ही होता है कि हाँ बच्चे थे यार सब, you know.
And maybe don't hold any kind of
no, I don't. I was never the sort of person to hold anything against anyone. I'm still not that sort of a person, So
do you think you might have benefited from having like a school counselor or a teacher talk to you about it?
Yes. I think I would have benefited if if there was somebody who could have spoken to the rest of the students, like you said in the class, कि भाई किसी के साथ ये हुआ है तो this is how you're supposed to behave. I also feel like it would have been better if I had someone to go to. If I'm experiencing or feeling something, so I could go to someone and speak to someone.
Yeah, no, I think, loss in itself, but also the things leading up to it are, it's hard.
Yeah, like मैं अपने अब्बू के case में a lot of people, like it wasn't sudden because he was diagnosed and the prognosis was not good from the start. So it wasn't like a...
But it was like 3 or 4 months. That's still
4 months.
4 months, yeah.
But like the thing with that is that when you know that this could happen, it's a very difficult thing to live with every day. And mujhe, like the death part, I come to terms with, and I have come to terms with. But the 4 months, I can't sort of still
the being in limbo?
Yes, the knowing this can happen anytime. The every phone call was scary. Every morning waking up was just like really difficult because you don't know what today holds. So I just felt like that was a more difficult part than the later part.
Yes.
So people don't understand or see that. A lot of people I've heard say कि यार चलो sudden तो नहीं था, which is not a very nice thing to say, but like, I mean, I get people don't get it.
I don't think there's a better or worse way for it to happen, right? Like it's not a...
But I know that knowing every day is
excruciatingly
excruciating. So those 4 months are like a blur. I feel like my mind has just like erased it for me because it's so painful to just wake up every day and watch someone who was so healthy like deteriorate so much, deteriorate this much. It really hurts you to watch that happen.
And the helplessness.
The helplessness where you're like, you can't do something. You're just watching and you're sort of at the back of your head waiting for it to happen. But you can't let go of the hope also because it just doesn't leave you till the last moment. I don't know, maybe we're wired like that. कि कुछ miracle हो जाएगा. So, yeah, so that bit is more difficult to deal with than the death itself because I feel like death is inevitable and you sort of do come to terms with it. But that part was very traumatic.
Yeah.
So I think people, cancer is something that people talk about a lot, and it's very difficult for the person going through it. But the people that are going through it with that person, it's a whole thing on its own.
Yes. Yeah. And the caregiving part of it was also really difficult.
Like Fatma, I can't even imagine what it was like for my mother. Because 2 days before my father passed away, I was at home alone with my mom and my sister, who was like really young at the time, like 5 years old. 560. And my mother had a huge panic attack. I had no idea what a panic attack is. And she's just on the floor and she's screaming and she's unable to breathe and she's unable to move. And there I was standing, like I was just a 15-year-old girl, standing there thinking my mom is about to die. Because that's what she was saying to me, कि मैं मर जाऊंगी. Because that's what a panic attack feels like. You feel like you're going to die. So I've been through that. Seeing my mother, knowing my dad might die any day in the hospital, and then watching my mother go through this. Nobody was there in the house. मेरी छोटी बहन थी. So ये सारी चीज़ें भी होती हैं for the people who are doing the caregiving and who are going through this. So I just feel like this bit people can't relate to or understand at all.
No, I don't think that till people have an experience of that, it's even possible to get a sense of what that's like. And I'm hearing you talk about it, and I can hear how distressing it was, but maybe I still don't understand the full gravity of it.
Yes. But like, you get it.
I do. Yeah. I do. Yeah.
So...
But even hearing you talk about it and reflecting on my own memories of that, I have no... Like, those things feel like two completely different incidents that people are talking about, right? Because on the surface, you were functioning, and that's how I think we assess mental health, कि functioning किस तरह हो रही है.
कि अगर बंदा normal लग रहा है,
बंदा स्कूल जा रहा है, इम्तिहान दे रहा है, तो बस, you know.
हाँ. It's interesting that you said the functioning thing, because a lot of people at the time said that I was unaffected by my father's death, that I was moving on, functioning normally. So people thought कि बस she's fine.
Yeah. And I think that's so problematic as a view to hold generally, because people are in pain all the time. It doesn't mean कि वो, you know, they're displaying it. और जब तक आप बैठ के बिल्कुल ही dysfunctional ना होएं, उसका ये मतलब नहीं होता कि you're not in pain. And correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is that a lot of you not, you know, changing your functioning or not expressing pain in the way that people expected of you to was about protecting your family from it in some way.
Yes, definitely. That is there. और जब मैंने वो बात की थी ना कि we sort of shut off. I had a younger sister and my mom and my brother. You're always thinking of your family's pain also. Okay, oh, my mom just lost her husband. Oh, my younger sister just lost her father. She's so young. So you sort of like trivialize your own because you're like, hey, you know, matlab, I know okay, it's bad for you as well. And you also sort of like don't, like if they're doing okay, you don't want to trigger it.
Yes. Yeah.
And you also know कि आपको एक दूसरे के grief से फ़र्क पड़ता है ना, तो you don't want to make the other person sad because you don't want the other person to feel like I'm also that sad, because फिर this will make that person even feel even worse. So it's so complicated.
It is. And it's much more complicated than, you know, we think of it.
Yes. But I feel like in retrospect, that is one thing that should not have happened. And like I should have been more open to expressing my grief towards my family so that they could have been as well. I feel like जब कोई बात ही नहीं
करेगा. But you're still thinking about their grief ना, कि अगर मैं कर लेती तो वो अपनी process कर लेते हैं.
हाँ, true. But like it would have helped all of us.
I'm curious, do you think that this in some way or in any way influenced your decision to go into like a caring profession, a healthcare profession?
Yes, it did. Definitely did. I wanted to become an MBBS doctor for the very same reason, because अब्बू को cancer हो गया था, and then I was like, मैंने यही करना है. But then like, so I was like set on that. But then things happened here and there where then I was just encouraged to do this. तो फिर वो रह गया था. But that's where it stemmed from, the whole healthcare profession thing. So
Yeah.
yeah. But like so for me, like I'm the sort of person who definitely has like I'm very passionate about healing and helping people. I'm not a psychotherapist, but with my work as an influencer, for me it's always been about helping people, heal, and with my words or the things I say, having them find the words that helping them find the words that they can't maybe find, and talk about like relatable
Content. Yeah.
real life things beyond lifestyle, but more around emotions and like mind.
Yeah.
But in a more relatable way.
And I know you're a new mom, so maybe you want to say a little bit about how that's been for you, because it's a big life transition.
Yeah, so that it's I think new mother struggles बहुत सारी होती हैं, and I was always very afraid of the postpartum bit where I was afraid I might go into like PPD, and I always was like, you know, reading up on being able to recognize and identify that in good time. So like when I first gave birth, I had like baby blues. I did have them because I struggled with breastfeeding, and then there was a lot of guilt around that and issues around that. So it just made it more. So I was grieving because I wasn't able to do something that I had planned I'm going to do as a mom. You know, I wasn't able to do that. So obviously that was affecting me. But then, you know, I came out of the blues within 3 weeks.
Okay.
I had read online लिखा हुआ था 2 weeks के बाद then you should get help.
अच्छा.
तो जब वो 2 weeks से ज़्यादा हो गए
You were like, oops, it's time.
oops, yeah. But like वो चले गए, and then then I was like very very happy, and alhamdulillah, like I think overall my journey as a mother has been happy. I've been very happy mothering him. I've been very happy doing motherly things. So I think the struggle came when I had to like do beyond motherly things.
Okay.
Right?
Like come back to work?
Come back to work or do more than have a role beyond a mom. Because मैंने like 5 months कुछ और नहीं किया. I was just like me and my baby and like doing everything. I mean, I did do things, but like, I mean, I did quite a lot of things, but it was always like my main thing that took up like all of my day. And I was doing it very happily, right? So the thing with me is that when I do something, I like really do it, jump into it, okay? So I was doing the whole thing very happily. So when I had to like do other things, I was sad because of the separation.
Yeah, which is normal.
Yes, and because of the few hours of separation that I was going to have, and then also like the realization that I felt like all of a sudden I felt like I don't know how to do anything that I knew how to do before.
Okay.
I just didn't know, you know, how to like speak in the camera or like make stories or do things, just normal things, not like any proper big things, very normal things that came so naturally to me were just odd. कि ये कैसे करते हैं? Because I felt like a loss of identity because
Sure.
Which was not a surprise because I had already sort of prepared myself that you are not going to be the same person, and acceptance was one thing that I took very seriously from the start, to accept the change and accept things. They're changing and they will change. But I didn't know that finding the new me would be such a struggle.
Yeah.
So that part I'm still sort of, I think, trying to.
Yeah, and I think that's an ongoing process. जो अब, you know, क्या 27, 28 years लगा के एक identity build की है. You can't integrate something as big as being a mother into that right away. It takes time. But I don't know if this has been part of your experience or not, and maybe you want to say more about it if it has. But a lot of my friends who I speak to who are new mothers or have been, they talk about mom guilt and kind of how difficult it is to navigate being a mom, but also doing all of these other things that are necessary in a lot of situations, whether it's, you know, going back to your work or caring for other people, and
Caring for yourself.
caring for yourself. And that feels like a really selfish thing to do. So
I think that has a lot to do with your people around you and your family or the support system that you have. Because if you honestly, I feel that if we had more voices, sort of constantly telling these women that it's okay, they're going to do better at it. But when they don't hear those voices and they can only hear this mom guilt that they have inside them, then it's very difficult. Because it's just very difficult to put yourself first after becoming a mother.
yeah,
right?
and also I think we're so deeply socialized कि माँ एक constant
bhi,
एक
I was just gonna get
sacrifice
there.
की symbol है, or that's the only thing a mother does, or she always puts other people, and I think that's so
why-
problematic.
Yes, that's why I'm saying that it has to come from
Yeah.
around you.
Yeah.
Because from around you, you have heard that you are supposed to be this sacrificing mom who just does things for her babies and all, never puts herself first. But if you have these voices coming externally, ke yaar nahi, you can put yourself first, then these mothers will do better because they need, unfortunately, they need that
and even
support
it
system.
shouldn't even be about this is downtime so they can be better at mothering, right? Like I think that's also still feeding into the same
हाँ,
thing.
because वो एक वो है ना term कि fill your own cup.
हाँ.
You can't pour
then-
from an empty
and
cup,
it's- and
so
it's
you'll be a
only-
better mother if you were pouring.
And if it's only, then self-care is only justified if it's increasing your ability to be a better mother. And I think that that's also difficult. But I think that the reality of motherhood, and especially in our generation and in our times, is that some days you're like, shit, ye maine kya kiya apni zindagi ke saath? And other days you're like, everything is worth it.
Yeah.
At least that's what I've heard from people.
No,
when
definitely.
they talk about it.
I think that's what motherhood is about, where one day you feel like, I was born to do this.
Yeah.
The next day you're like, how the hell am I a mother? Because what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because these days I'm feeling like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing?
You just need to be good enough. You don't need to be perfect.
You don't need to be
Yeah,
perfect. So I do feel that society, yes, it puts a pressure on you to be this self-sacrificing person, and we don't celebrate women who are doing more.
Absolutely. And I think maybe we can briefly, like, that made me think of something. My mother's always been a working woman for the last, she hasn't worked in the last couple of, and she's going to kill me for saying this, but she was a dev sector auntie with the, joggers and the shalwar kameez and the crossbody bag. So
The quintessential.
Yeah. So, and for me, that's been such a big influence in my life. It's taught me it's the exposure she had that really changed her parenting.
Yes.
When I look at a lot of my peers whose mothers didn't work, the financial independence she had, the agency she had as a woman, all of those things are such a big part of who I am and my values now.
Because I agree with you. I feel the same way. I don't know. I would never sit here and say my mom was not there for me because she was working.
Yeah, no, I would never feel
It's
that.
the complete opposite. Like, my mom was working, which is why there are a billion things that I know better, than if she wasn't working, because of her exposure. And the fact that I saw, again, my mother beyond just the role of a mother.
Yeah.
She was a woman with an independent life. Which
Not that there's anything wrong with being just a woman. I think it was just a mother.
Not that there's anything wrong with it, but that's a good thing.
Yes.
Gave me something to aspire to as well, So for me, it's not like you should be a stay-at-home mom or you should be a working mom, but it's like there is nothing wrong
with doing either.
Yeah. So as long as you're happy,
Yes.
that's the more
And as
important
long as
thing.
that's the thing you want, I recognize that.
As long as it's your choice.
Yes. And वो भी एक level of privilege, की बात होती है कि आप ये choice कर सकते हैं. For a lot of women, it's not a choice to sit at home and be a mom, even if that's what they want to do.
Yes.
But I definitely think that my overall outlook on life, my experience of being a woman, and how seriously, for me, it was never will I have a career or not? It was, that was the one thing my mother's always focused on, कि अपने पैरों पे खड़ा होना ज़रूरी है. And that's what I work towards. And I'm so grateful for that, because I think ये बातें अब लोग कर रहे हैं, और I think from our generation most mothers might be like that, but
Yes.
I think we got really lucky that
Yes.
our mothers were kind of in the workforce before.
Yes. And I think because like at the end of the day, your moms are your role models. And because of that, it's a bit easier for women like me who when become moms to push themselves first sometimes and to work and do this, because you're like, this is normal. This is how it's supposed to be. You know, my mom was never the doting mom or the one जो कि like मतलब even उस तरह like मैं देखती थी the difference growing up. It didn't affect me negatively ever कि मेरी अम्मी ऐसी नहीं है, but I saw कि my mom was a working woman, so she doesn't like make snacks for me in the evening कि अगर मैं पढ़ रही हूँ ना because you know I used to like have study dates with friends, तो ना शाम को उनकी अम्मियाँ जो ना उनके लिए कुछ तुम कब से पढ़ रही हो तो तुम्हारे लिए. My mom did not have the time for that. You know, and that was okay. ना मुझे उस वक्त वो feel हुआ ना वो to me I just felt like there were so many other things I got out of her, you know, being the way that she was. And at the end of the day, no mother is perfect.
No.
Giving your child that snack in the evening does not make you a better mother from a mother who didn't.
Yeah.
Because I feel like with those things, if you say that those things make a mom better, ek to you can't say which mom is better, then you are literally reducing motherhood to domestic chores and stuff and cooking and cleaning and stuff like that.
And also, I think there's this whole thing of how the mother's kind of individuality is centered around caregiving again, right? Like, so again, the idea about self-care being such a difficult thing to negotiate. It's कि अगर आप purpose ही उनका ये define कर रहे हैं कि उन्होंने बस ख्याल रखना है बच्चों का और घर संभालना है और घर साफ रखना है, which somehow my mother also managed to do. I don't know how she did it,
but they did like
it's unrealistic to me now. But yeah, I think that's definitely been a big
I just feel like motherhood and parenting is beyond cooking. Get it? There is so much more to it.
Of course.
So
and I think just while we're on the topic, it's important to talk about how big a role fathers play and should be playing in terms of parenting. It's not a woman's job alone. It's a two-person job. And I don't think we talk about that enough. कि एक बाप का क्या role है in the emotional well-being of a child, because there's a lot.
Yes.
So yeah, that's important to have.
Okay. So I guess that's it.
That is it.
That was a lot, but that was very nice. I feel like मैंने बहुत अरसे बाद किसी से बैठ के इस तरह बातें की हैं. टाइम नहीं मिलता ना. अब मैं वर्क कर रही हूँ तो फिर मैं कर रही हूँ because it's part of my job. So yeah, I did a lot of unloading there myself.
I'm glad. No, I'm glad to have been here, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for all the insight that you gave us. So many things I couldn't have ever thought about. So many things I'm sure a lot of these people couldn't have thought about. Is there anything else that you would like to say in the end?
No, not really. No
All
profound
okay. Words of advice. Words of wisdom.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, I think we had a lot of wisdom in there anyway. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I had such a good time talking to Fatima. I hope that you enjoyed listening to this podcast. Please stay tuned and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you again next time. Allah Hafiz.